Hey guys, today I want to cover my recent PSA return. It's a $3,400 return, just 6 cards. I want to go over each of the cards and show you guys why I think it got the grades it did. Hopefully that will help you guys when you're chasing those 10s. I also want to kind of give some strategies for trying to get more 10s with the way that you send cards, the order that you send cards, all that kind of stuff. If you like this kind of content, maybe you're into grading or just Pokemon card collecting in general, please hit that subscribe button. Give me a like. It really helps guys with the algorithm. I'm a tiny little channel. Really helps. I appreciate it. Let's jump right into it, guys. I have not opened this yet, so we're going to start with a reveal of the cards themselves. I'm pretty pumped about these. I sent these at the Value Plus tier, which is the 20-day turnaround. It took a little longer, but I dropped off the submission with PSA at a local event, and then it took a little longer, I guess by the time they got it back to California, and then actually did the grading and everything. But typically I will send, when I send in a submission, I'll send a higher tier submission with lower tiers. So if you're sending in a whole bulk TCG bulk, maybe send in a few cards at the higher tier. I think that tends to get all of your orders unloaded faster at PSA, which is really helpful. All right, let's see the big reveal here. By the way, when these come back, these are out of order of the order I sent them. I am going to cover the order I sent them. First one up, boom, Giratina V-Star Gold from Crown Zenith. Absolutely love this card. We're going to cover in a second why I think these cards got the grade. We'll go over them more carefully. But first, I'm just going to do the reveal. Boom, Charizard V Brilliant Stars Alt-Art. This card is so underrated, guys. I don't know why this card is still so low priced compared to the other Alt-Arts. Oh yeah, guys, the granddaddy of all granddaddies, the Team Rocket's Mewtwo from Destined Rivals. I am really stoked about this. This is the card I'm most excited about in a PSA 10. Mew PSA 9, and I have to admit to you, I sent this purposely to get a PSA 9. It was just a strategy of mine that I'll go over here in a second. And this was a bummer. Giratina V came back at PSA 9. We're going to go over this and try to figure out why that might be. And finally, Team Rocket's Tyranitar from Versus. This is really special. I picked this card up in Japan, guys. If you go back and watch my Pokemon shopping in Akihabara video, you can see me talking about this one. Beautiful card. Really stoked to have this one in a PSA 10. So without further ado, let's get into the nitty gritty of things. All right, guys, so here's the order I sent it in. The first card was the Team Rocket's Mewtwo. I'm going to cover this in a second, but the card was a little off center. It was like on the edge of being good centering wise. So my thought process was I'll just send this one first. A lot of times you want to put your cards that are a little bit sketchier, if you will, or a little bit like more on the line of a 10. I'll put them earlier in the submission before the grader is seeing like really pristine copies of cards, if that makes sense. A great example of this is if you have English and Japanese, you always want to send your Japanese at the end because the Japanese are always really high quality. So I put this one first for a reason, and then I threw in my Token 9 card. So I don't think PSA will give you 100% 10s. I just don't think they will, unless it's a really small submission, maybe like 3 or 4 cards. I've had that get 100% 10s before. But in general, I don't know this for sure, but I suspect that it looks bad on the grader if he's just handing out all 10s. Like maybe his supervisor talks to him and says, hey, are these all deserving 10s? Like maybe there's greater scrutiny. I just think in general, it probably looks better if you're a grader if you're not giving 100% 10s. So I don't think PSA will give me all 10s, and therefore I kind of already assume that certain cards are going to get 9 or below. And with these smaller submissions like this, I want to prop up my other cards and make sure that they have the best chance possible. So this was a sacrificial card. This Mew, right, that I sent in for number 2, it was just a sacrificial card that I threw in there to get a 9 or even an 8. I thought it was probably going to get a 9, but it could potentially get an 8. And that was just to kind of bring the overall average down so that the other cards could shine. I was bummed about this Giratina V. I thought it had a good chance, but notice I put it kind of higher up in the submission because I did want it to grade well. And I put it right after this 9 too, so that it would look good compared to this old vintage 9. And so the grader just gave me a 9, so he knows that he's kind of in the clear, that like he doesn't have to worry about later cards needing to be. Does that make sense? Like I wanted the 9 to show up earlier in the submission so that he's not worried that he's getting down to the last card and has to give me a 9 that I don't deserve. Does that make sense? And then the order of these other 3, you know, doesn't matter that much. I kind of threw in, this is where I actually technically made a mistake. I put this Japanese right here. I should have put the Japanese at the bottom, if I'm honest with you. Although I think of all these cards, I think the Charizard was the strongest for a PSA 10. And the Giratina I really should have put probably before the Tyranitar. So I think I was in a little bit of a hurry and I didn't fully think this through, but the top 3, there was a strategy to that order, if that makes sense. All right, let's try to go into each of these cards and figure out what's going on here. So let's start with the Japanese. Japanese cards are really nice. They're probably the easiest to grade. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and adjust my light real quick here. All right, guys, this is going to be kind of tricky. The light's going to be kind of a problem. I had to move the light so I could hopefully just show more detail here. But with this card, first of all, you can see centering on versus cards is always a little bit tricky. But looking at the top and the side here, they look pretty well centered. You know, basically this thickness here of this border and that border should be about the same. That gives you an idea of the centering on a versus card. You may or may not be able to see it. I'll try to pull it up here without, but the hollow is just pristine. There's nothing there. Pretty obvious. And then look at the back though. Notice the back is actually pretty off-centered, guys. Pretty dang off-centered. But you got to remember with the PSA 10, you're allowed to have 70-30, so 70%, 30% centering on the back. And so I thought this card really was probably going to be just fine because that centering probably is approaching 70-30 on the back, but the front centering is great. And so this front centering needs to be 45-55. So anyway, that's the easy one out of the way. This is the one that I'm really kind of surprised did not 10. So it got a 9. The top to bottom border, you know, the top border is a little bit thicker than the bottom. But guys, I got to tell you, like looking at this is easily PSA 10 centering. So the front, like everybody thinks PSA 10 centering is perfect. It's not. This is easily within the spec of a PSA 10 centering wise. And I've seen worse centering cards. In fact, there's worse centering cards in this submission that got a 10. But if we look at the back here too, you'll notice the corners, edges, all very, very sharp, guys. Very sharp. The one thing I can maybe see here, and let's see if I can get it to show up. So there is some white specks here on the Pokeball. Maybe I can get that. Yeah, you can see those tiny little white specks right there. Hopefully the YouTube video doesn't like run it. Lost Origin had a lot of these white specks on the back. There's some white specks down here too. You can see them. Yep, see that right there? See those white specks? That's pretty typical for Lost Origin. There's more white specks there. I have a lot of cards that I've gotten 10s on that have those white specks. So to be honest with you guys, I'm a little unsure about this one. I'm pretty tempted to crack and resubmit this if I'm honest with you guys. And to me, the opportunity cost is really high. If this 10s, the price triples basically, right? Over a 9. And so I will probably crack and resub. This guy got a 9. The centering is really good on the front. But if I remember correctly, I think like this back corner. Let's see if I can get that to show up. Hey guys, I just want to point out too, I was struggling to pick it up on the Mew, but basically there's like a little bit of a white on this edge, and then there's kind of white along the corner, and there's white along that corner too. So when you see multiple corners or edges that have whitening like that, you're probably not going to get a 10. If you have a couple just tiny white specks, like really, really tiny white specks, you might be okay. But especially with this one where it basically is around that edge and around this edge and a little bit on the, or excuse me, around this corner, around that corner, a little bit on this edge, it's just not gonna work. Unfortunately, with OBS, it doesn't autofocus the darn camera, which is really annoying to me. I might have to figure out a different way to show pre-grading tactics, but I can at least kind of describe it to you. I can see little white specks all along that corner and all along this corner. So that's not a great sign for a 10. But again, I didn't mean for this card to get a 10 anyway, so it's fine. One thing I've noticed about PSA in general, these guys have gotten pretty dang picky about vintage. So, I mean, unless the card is just absolutely perfect, you're probably not going to get a PSA 10 these days with vintage. Okay, now the big granddaddy right here, the Mewtwo EX. So if you look at this card, I had a lot of people telling me that's not good enough centering, that's not going to get a 10. I was like, I think it could. I think it has a strong chance. Here's why. If I look at the back of the card, this card's immaculate. There's absolutely nothing on the surface. The surface is perfect. The corners are perfect. The edges are perfect. The back surface is gorgeous. On these textured cards, you rarely have any problem with the surface of the front because that texturing tends to kind of protect everything. And sure enough, the front's perfect too. So the only thing wrong with this card is the centering. And the centering is like right on that like 45, 55 line, like approaching it. You can kind of notice like the thickness of this side right here versus the thickness of that side. Like that side's pretty thick compared to this, okay? So it is like right on the line of 45, 55. But because it's still within spec and the rest of the card is so immaculate, I thought it had a really good chance. I think if you have cards that are on the line centering wise, they need to be very, very minty. That would be my advice to you. And they still are not guaranteed. Some graders I've noticed seem to be a little bit pickier. Like if it hits the line, they won't accept it. But most of the time, I think that it will pass through. So if you have a card that's super minty and it's right on that 45, 55 line, send it. Seriously, send it. There's a lot of off-center PSA 10s out there if you look on the market. All right, Charizard V. This one is kind of a no-brainer. Pretty well centered, not perfect, but pretty dang good centering, honestly. Absolutely beautiful card. Gosh, yeah. Sharp corners, edges, everything like that. Sword and Shield was just a lot easier to grade in general, but that doesn't mean that every card grades. I mean, I've had raw copies of this that would absolutely not 10. They're not all gonna 10. I bought this one specifically because I thought it had a good shot at a 10. Now this one probably would surprise a lot of people that this 10s. So this, let's start at the back here. This Giratina V-Star, first of all, very, very clean. This is another example like the Mewtwo where the card is super minty. The corners, the edges, the surface, all really good on the back. It's textured on the front and the surface looks really good on the front. It is pretty off center. And it's not only is it off center, but it's off center in two directions. It's off center top to bottom and off center right to left. But again, it was within the 45-55 spec. And because the rest of the card is so minty, yeah, I thought it had a really good shot, and sure enough, it did 10. So I think that's really important. A lot of people think that a PSA 10 is like a perfectly centered card or a card that looks really super centered, but this is an example right here of a PSA 10. This is a very legitimate PSA 10 where the centering is a little off. It's not crazy off, but it's a little off, you know? And so hopefully this stuff's useful for you guys. So I have another big bulk submission coming back, like a TCG bulk, I think is what the tier is called, with 23 cards. That will probably be here in the next month or two. So I will be uploading a video on that. I expect to get a lot more like 9s and maybe even some 8s. And so that would be a really interesting video, I think, for you guys. I'll have a bigger strategy on why I put certain cards in the order that I did. And also we'll go into detail with the cards that did not get 10s, why I thought they didn't get 10s. But hopefully this video is helpful for you guys. Hopefully it helps you with your next submission. If you guys like to grade cards, I would love to hear about your recent grading adventures in the comments below. If you're new to grading, feel free to drop a comment or a question in the comments. I'll try to answer it as best as I can. Thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll catch you later.